In this video, we're going to show you how to install the wheel hub on your INFINITI G37 X, located behind your front wheels. Using a 21mm socket, loosen and remove your lug nuts. Now, on our particular vehicle, we have a locking lug nut. We have the key to remove it. If you just have a standard lug nut, go ahead and take it off. Once you have those removed, remove the wheel and set it aside. We're going to go ahead and remove our axle nut. Now, on your particular vehicle, you may have a cotter pin running through the axle nut that keeps that nut from coming off. Go ahead and remove that cotter pin and remove your axle nut. We're using a 36mm socket. Go ahead and set that aside. On our knuckle here, we have a flex hose to a hard line with a junction right here, as well as on the back side. It's the same setup. 12mm nuts. We want to go ahead and loosen and remove both of these. I'm just going to go ahead and pry this out a little bit. And then work this off of the back side. We want to separate our ABS wire from our strut and knuckle assembly. You're going to gently grab the rubber portion, not the wire, and slide that out. Now, there's 3 points of contact here on the front side, and if you follow it around the back side, there's a 4th contact right on the back of the knuckle. Go ahead and grab that wheel assembly, rotate that. And we now want to go ahead and pull out our ABS sensor from the back side of the knuckle. Use a 10mm socket. Loosen and remove the ABS bolt. Go ahead, grab that and twist it gently and slide that out. Go ahead and rotate this over. On the back side of our knuckle here, we have two 22mm bolts holding our caliper and caliper bracket. We're going to start by loosening and removing the lower one first. Now, when we go ahead and remove the upper one, the caliper and bracket will be loose, so you want to be careful. You want to hold on to that once you get ready to remove that bolt completely. Go ahead and remove that bolt and washer. The next thing you want to do is you want to grab a support tool, something like this here, and you're going to slide the caliper and bracket off. And you're going to bring that caliper up and hang that. Just go ahead and grab your brake rotor, slide that off and set that aside. On the back side of our knuckle here, we have 4 bolts holding our wheel hub. There's going to be 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and these are 17mm. So we're going to use our socket, a short extension, and our ratchet to go ahead and break these free, and we'll spin them out. You have to rotate the wheel the other way to go ahead and gain access to the other side. Now that we have all 4 bolts out, let's go ahead and move to the front of the wheel hub. Now we're going to use a hammer and strike the back side of our wheel hub here. We want to go ahead and separate this out of the knuckle itself. Now you can see that our backing plate came loose. Remember that the notch faces the front side. Push on the axle and pull the hub out. Let's remove your backing plate. Now we want to clean inside the knuckle itself. Start by just giving that a wipe. You can use a bristle brush to clean the inside. Sometimes there's a little too much corrosion in there. We'll have to use a file or something to clean this up a little bit more. But your goal is to make sure that the surface on the inside lip as well as the face is properly cleaned and free of any corrosion. Once you've cleaned everything up, go ahead and spray it down with a solvent. Using some anti-seize compound, you want to put some around the face here as well as around the perimeter, and we're going to put a little bit on the splines here on our axle. Now installing your hub here itself, you want to pay attention to the notches. There's going to be 2 narrow ones and then a wide one here. The wide one goes on the bottom. The 2 narrow ones go at basically 10 and 2. Install your backing plate and then slide the wheel hub over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the bolts, I'm going to feed it through. I have hand accessibility to the 2 lower bolts pretty easy. So I'm going to slide bolt through on the back side, feed it through the backing plate, and then we're going to line up the wheel hub. And once that lines up with that ear, I'm going to go ahead and start to thread that in by hand a little bit. And then once we have this lower bolt installed, I'm going to go ahead and install the other side, and then we'll proceed to getting the 2 uppers installed. And then we're going to start and tighten them down evenly to pull the wheel hub into the knuckle. I'm going to take the bolt on my socket here. Feed that in and get this started. Let's go ahead and snug these down. Go ahead and torque these 4 bolts down to 65 foot-pounds. And repeat for the other 2. Bring your ABS sensor over, feed that in. Go ahead and get that bolt started. I like to thread these in as far as I can by hand. Snug that down. Once that bolt bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Take your brake rotor, you're going to line this up. I'm going to go ahead and take a lug nut, and I'm going to thread this on. This is going to help keep that brake rotor sitting flush to the hub while we install the caliper and bracket. Go ahead and grab that brake rotor, and we're going to rotate this wheel. Now we're going to go ahead and grab our brake caliper, lift it up off of our support hook, spin this around. Make sure that your brake pads are seated inside the bracket. I'm going to get our upper bolt started here. Once we get that upper bolt started into that caliper bracket, that'll support everything. Make sure you get that in several threads. Go ahead and grab that lower bolt, get that fed in, and get that started a few threads. You might have to pull the caliper in and out a little bit to get that to line up. Now we have our hard line. We'll run this around. I'm gonna get the block installed on the back side here first. Feed that down on that stud. I'm going to install one of the nuts on the back side here to hold that block in place. Pull this around, push that down, get that nut installed. And we'll go ahead and snug those down. So once that nut bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Do want to make sure it's good and snug. Go ahead and do the same for the rear block. Just bottomed out. Grab your ABS wire, line up that grommet with the tab, push that down and in. Install the grommet on the back tab. Install that one and this one right here. Snug down our caliper bracket bolts. Let's go ahead and torque these down to 92 foot-pounds. We can now straighten out the wheel and remove that lug nut off the front of the brake rotor. Install 2 lug nuts side by side. And then we're going to lower the vehicle down close to the ground. Rotate that wheel. We're going to use our lug nuts here to help us with some leverage. Go ahead and put your pry bar here. I'm going to torque down this axle nut to 92 foot-pounds. Now, our axle nut itself has dimpled edges to work it as a locking nut. You may have a cotter pin on your application. Simply install a new cotter pin, bend it over, snip off the access, remove your pry bar, and remove the lug nuts. At this point here, we can go ahead and raise up the vehicle and install your wheel. Go ahead and install your wheel. I'm going to go ahead and get all of our lug nuts started by hand. Once we get all of these started, we're going to go ahead and snug them down. We have our locking key. Go ahead and torque down your lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. We're going to use our locking key first. Then we'll continue with the rest in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.